confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Civil Law honoris causa.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, by now the secret is out the bag. We have with us this morning recently received his honorary doctorate from the University of Newcastle. Of course, a CIC old boy, a Trinbagonian to his heart, representing us on the international stage every single day. Good morning to you, Dr. Neil Shaka Hislop.
Good morning, Rawkus. How are you this morning?
So far, so good. I'm very happy and honored to be here. Let me say congratulations to you this morning, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been an incredible honor. I mean, the last couple of months, given the freedom of the city from Newcastle, and now this most recent award from Newcastle University has been humbling in a number of ways.
I want to take you back a bit to 1996. A part of the reason that you would have received this honorary doctorate is for your work on Show Racism, the Red Card. I want to get back to the inspiration that would have started that. Do you mind recounting the details of the incident that took place that triggered you to get into this position?
Certainly. My wife and I were out in Newcastle late one night, out for dinner or something of the sort. I can't remember exactly what we were doing, but we needed to fill up the car with gas, and so we stopped. There's a gas station just opposite St. James's Park. So it was on our way home, so we stopped there, and then a group of about 6 youths, I think it was, come walking down the hill outside St. James's Park, started shouting racist abuse at me, and one of them recognized who I was, so they started chanting my name and wanted to come over for autographs. I'd already been in touch with Jed Greby, who was doing some work in the Northeast with an organization called Youth Against Racism in Europe. I'd made a donation to Youth Against Racism in Europe for some of their own educational materials. And on the back of that kind of friendship that we had on the back of my donation, and then that incident, we just started talking about getting footballers involved in speaking about these social issues. And then racism was certainly one that was close to my heart, especially given the incident. And that was kind of the spark to show racism the red card and what it's become. And now happily celebrating, well, we're still celebrating our 25th anniversary. Because of the pandemic, that can has been kicked down the road a year. So we're into 26 years now, but we're celebrating nonetheless.
Yeah, man, and it's definitely with the celebration. Was this the first time in your football career that you encountered racism? Because I've heard so many scary stories.
You know, it's the first that I can recall, and certainly was as in my face as that was. And the reason I say that, because I did an interview recently with a young man who's writing a book about Reading Football Club, where of course I started. I left Reading to join Newcastle. Just writing a book about Reading in the 90s, and he was speaking to me about my time there. And he mentioned an article in the local paper that spoke about the amount of racist abuse that I was receiving, especially when I traveled, especially when Reading played away. I just don't recall. I don't recall the article. I don't have a clear recollection of the abuse either. So clearly it was there. I know it was there. My wife would also travel to games when I played, and she could hear it. But just standing out on the field, whether it's just the way that professionals zone out, or just distance between myself and the fans, I wasn't aware of it in the way that this certainly impacted me.
Yeah, and you know, we also respond to trauma in different ways. So sometimes we might block it out and not even realize that it was happening around us. But I'm so happy that you're able to take that and turn it into something positive, to have that positive change on the world, and of course being recognized for it by Newcastle. How does it feel to get that honorary doctorate?
Very humbling. But also, you know, after pay, you talk about turning a negative experience. I always say that to tell my full story, I also have to tell the story of my father, who moved to England in the 60s as part of the Windrush generation. Him and his best friend, Desmond Allen, also wrongfully arrested, or were wrongfully arrested by the police. and they challenged the Metropolitan Police. This is 1960s Britain. Two black men from Trinidad and Tobago taking on the Metropolitan Police, taking on Scotland Yard and winning. And that's the example I grew up with in my household. So to take this incident and turn it into what it is, it's simply what I knew. It's simply what I've always been exposed to, and happy that I can boast of an organization with the record and the standing that Showrace and the Red Card now has, and to have that recognized by Newcastle University as well. I think it's important and impactful for me. Newcastle University, as I mentioned in my acceptance talk, are the only university outside of the United States to bestow an honorary degree on Martin Luther King. I was able to see and sign in the same book that Martin Luther King did when he received this exact same degree in civil law. This was a time where Martin Luther King was deemed a terrorist, where the FBI was following his every move, yet Newcastle were the ones who understood the arc of history and gave him that platform, gave him the recognition that he deserved. So just following on in Dr. Martin Luther King's footsteps, and it's been nearly 125 recipients of that same degree in the time since. But knowing the role that Newcastle University continues to play in that landscape around social justice, around equality, and around fighting racism, it's truly humbling.
Now, Dr. Hislop, you're an inspiration to many young men. You have a role now as a sports analyst and a commentator on ESPN Inc. And, to think you're following in the footsteps of people like Dr. Martin Luther King, and all of these achievements, all of these great things that you've been able to accomplish. When you think back to your time in Trinidad and Tobago as a student, as a young man growing up, what's some of the motivation that kept you going to be able to get to the point where you're at now?
I think my education in Trinidad exposed me to all the tools I need to be successful, both in sports and in every field that I've kind of found myself in. The diversity that Trinidad and Tobago offers, the unity of our races, and how we continue to work together. Listen, I recognize that Trinidad and Tobago is not without the challenges, but when you see some of the successes, when you see some of the hurdles that we continue to be able to navigate on a daily basis, and to be immersed in that, I gave me all the tooling that I needed. So I've gone on to happily enjoy a professional football career because I was able to share fields with people like Dwight York. Condolences to him and the York family for their recent loss. Russell Latapy and his mom, Joan in particular, who played such a role in my own sporting life. Through academics, the support of my mother and father in pursuing them both. It's afforded me an insight into who I am, and that's all I try to represent to the best of my abilities wherever I am, reflecting that I'm Trinbagonian, reflecting the investment that both my mother and father put into me, and that Trinidad and Tobago also invested in me in my early years.
And we continue to be very, very proud of you. Congratulations yet again, Dr. Neil Shaka Hislop, receiving an honorary doctorate from the University of Newcastle in civil law. We appreciate everything that you continue to do to represent us on the world stage, and please continue to do your best at all times.
I certainly will try.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Now Morning Show this morning. Take care. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, to close off this segment this morning, I would like for us to take in a little bit of his actual acceptance speech when he received the honorary doctorate. Check this out.
By the authority of the university, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Civil Law, honoris causa.
That leaves us, who are progressive, who dream of a better world, to wake up every day, be intentional in our actions, be intentional in who we are and how we want to shape this world. The challenge in today's world, the challenge of a world that knows the immediacy of social media, is recognizing, understanding, accepting that we will not live in that utopian world we dream of. But there's no greater calling of our humanity than to plant the seed for someone to enjoy the cool shade of equality.